Welcome to the Unpopped Review, movie reviews from a movie lover and not a movie critic. So we just watched a movie that is 5% Groundhog's Day, 20% Tomorrowland, 30% Jumper, and 45% X-Men. Unfortunately, these are all better than Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now before we begin, I'd like to point out that for some reason the word peculiar is really hard for me to say, and on top of that, this movie calls powers peculiarities, so rather than struggling to call them that, I'm just going to say they have powers. And with that, let's start the review. Jacob has grown up always feeling different and has only ever been able to connect with his grandfather. But after he's mysteriously murdered, Jacob must follow the clues left by his grandfather to discover a boarding house filled with strange powered children. Only to discover that the lives of these children hang in the balance. Let's start by talking about the good. The concept, although feels like other stories, is actually very unique. I love the idea of weird old photographs actually proving the existence of powered children. However, that is where the great concept ends and becomes muddled with an overcomplicated story. And unfortunately, now we have to move on to the script. Now, I haven't read the book, so I don't know whether to blame the source material or the script. But almost everything that the characters say is awkward and ungenuine. Combine that with the decisions and actions and it makes even less sense. Let's jump over to the directing and acting. Tim Burton lately has been trying to do different things with his movies, but unfortunately they're just continually missing the mark. I just feel he's lost touch with what modern audiences like. He's a director of the 90s and unfortunately he'll probably always remain one. And on top of that, many of the actors aren't that great. Asa Butterfield is bland and boring, and that's probably because he's trying to do an American accent. And Samuel Jackson, well, you can tell he's just there for the paycheck. The only saving grace is Evergreen as Miss Peregrine, and Ella Purnell as one of the children. But unfortunately, their performances aren't good enough to elevate it enough. Now let's talk about the editing and storytelling. I usually don't like to bring up editing because I have no experience in this area. But this movie felt completely thrown together. Occasionally there are flashback scenes, and rather than simply showing us what happened, narration is added to describe it. So two people will be talking in a flashback, they'll pause, a narrator's voice will come in, and then they'll continue talking. It just felt disjointed and awkward, and luckily it only happens in a few scenes. Now I know it's been a while, but this movie definitely has some, so let's talk about the ugly. The computer graphics. The good news is that CG isn't used a lot, but when there is some, it is completely atrocious. It's incredible that the same year we got the lifelike looking Jungle Book, we get a movie with graphics straight out of 2008. The last fight scene especially was completely laughable. And the absolute worst thing of this movie is that it was overly confusing. There are many movies that I can just sit back and accept what characters are saying is true. And usually movies that I can do that with fall into one of two categories. They explain almost nothing like Memento, or they over-explain everything like a Star Trek movie. Either one of those I have no problem with. But this movie just falls in a weird middle ground that just makes it more confusing. Some things they would explain way too much, and others they wouldn't explain enough. I can just tell that the novel was probably packed with so much information that the script just had a hard time containing it all. But because of that, the end product was just a big, sloppy, confusing mess. So while I was really excited for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the concept is better than the execution. But if you're still interested in seeing it, I'd say to wait till Redbox. So that's what I thought of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. What did you think? And what is your favorite movie directed by Tim Burton? Leave your comments below, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember to always keep it unpopped.